I'm Elaine Newell. I'm the university's Ombuds Officer, and I'm just going to take a brief couple of minutes to talk about what I do at the Ombuds Office. The Ombuds Office, I was talking to Catherine before I started, it's interesting. I think today is my 4th year anniversary as the Ombuds Officer, so it's kind of an interesting thing to ponder that we've been here this long. The Ombuds Office started as a trial project about 2 years before I came. There was a decision that it would be helpful to have a resource on campus that was a little bit different from HR, a little bit different from legal affairs, that would enable people to have a place to go to talk about issues in a confidential setting, in a neutral setting, in an office that was independent from the usual resources that people had at the time. And so an Ombuds Office was developed. It existed for a couple of years, 2 years, in kind of a trial stage, and at the end of that 2 years, it was decided that, hey, this is a good thing to have, so they decided to keep it as a permanent part of the university, and I came on board in September of 2008. My background's a little bit like Catherine's. I was also a trial attorney. I've done employment law, civil rights law, some poverty law, and I was also a pastry chef for about 1.5 years, but that's a whole nother speech. So anyway, in terms of the Ombuds Office on campus now, basically it is something that you should consider to be a resource for you when you're facing some kind of a conflict and you're not quite sure where to turn. The key things to remember about the Ombuds Office that set it apart from the other resources on campus, I guess the first one is that it is independent. It is part of the president's office. That means it doesn't report to HR, it doesn't report to the provost, it doesn't report to university council. I report to the president. And that doesn't mean that everything I hear I go running to President Lee. Guess what I heard today? It's basically set up in the president's office to give it that independence so that it can, in essence, look at those other offices, because nobody's perfect. And if there may be concerns with some of those offices, then it's good to have an outlet to talk about those issues. So it's independent. It's also neutral. Catherine mentioned that her client is the university. My client is the president, in essence. I don't report to HR or legal or the provost's office. So if I see something that appears to be wrong or needs some examination, then I don't have to worry about who my boss is, because I can bring that information forward at the appropriate time to say, hey, here's something that needs to be examined. It's informal. It's a place where people can come in, and frequently do come in, and say, I just want to bounce some ideas off of you because I'm not sure there's something wrong, but it just doesn't feel right. You know, you don't have to come in and sign a piece of paper and write out your statement of interest or statement of complaint and make it all big and formal, and you know, that can be kind of scary sometimes. People come into my office and we sit down and we talk. And the fourth thing about the office that's really important to most people that come is that it's confidential. With very few exceptions, what you tell me is confidential, and I cannot share it with anyone. And I'll just tell you the exceptions now. If you give me permission to share it with people, then okay, I can share it with the people you give me permission to talk to about it. If there's imminent threat of serious harm, if I sense that there's something that could be very bad happening as a result of what you've told me, then I have the ability to share it to prevent that serious harm. And that's actually, I got that feeling twice in my 4 years, so it's not wildly out of touch with reality for that to happen. Another exception is if for some reason the situation ends up in some kind of legal process and I get an order that has legal authority behind it to reveal something, then I will probably have to reveal it. You know, I like to think that I'll be able to make an argument in court and win that I can keep it confidential, but you know, there's no ombuds client privilege like there's an attorney-client privilege or a doctor-patient privilege. but maybe one day. But that's probably more rare than the imminent threat of serious harm exception. So basically, what people tell me stays in my office. Now let me tell you a little bit about who comes to the Ombuds Office and why do they come. I can provide services to faculty, P&S staff, confidential and supervisory employees, and graduate students and postdocs. I can't provide services to undergraduates because they have their own resource over at the Dean of Students office and all those offices in that kind of umbrella of authority. And then I cannot provide services to people who are covered by the bargaining unit contract, the AFSCME bargaining unit contract. So that would be the traditional merit employees. And that's because they have union individuals from the union who can help them, so I simply refer them back to their union support people. Now, most people come to me because they're having a dispute or a conflict or in some uncomfortable situation with a supervisor. That's the vast majority of my cases. And it's generally an interpersonal relationship problem or a performance. A lot of times evaluations, people will come to me if they're unhappy with their performance evaluation, or they may be on a performance improvement plan. They'll come and talk about that. Sometimes I have people come talk to me about work-life issues. I've had people with elderly parents who are causing some challenges for them for getting their work done. Children who are having health issues that are causing difficulty in the workplace for them to get their work done or to meet traditional work hours and so forth. Catherine was talking about policy. I get tons of questions about, is there a policy about? So then I pull another chair up to my desk and we sit down and we click on the policy library links and we start looking for that. Now, I don't interpret the policies. What will happen will be if we pull up a policy and somebody says, well, what does that mean? Then I'll say, well, I think it means, but what you need to do is call HR or a department that's maybe relevant. I'm not the arbiter of or the decision maker of what a policy itself means, but I can help you find a policy. And then another kind of common issue that I deal with are people who are running up against complex university kind of regulatory areas. There are certain areas I've helped people with U-bills, grad students with U-bills, purchasing regulations, residence hall questions, you know, facilities issues where there's lots of people and lots of layers of rules and regulations, and people just get lost in trying to get their question answered. So we'll sit down together and try and work our way through it. Last year was personal record year. We had 104 people come to the Ombuds office. So far we're almost up to 400 people in 4 years. I think that's kind of exciting because I can watch more and more people coming, so I'm happy that I think the office is getting a reputation. People are now saying, hey, have you thought about the Ombuds office? So that's good. Last year was about 40% P&S employees and 30% faculty, which again, that's interesting to me because the faculty representation is creeping up. It used to be much more P&S. So I'm happy to see faculty are starting to feel comfortable coming. And what I'm really happy about is that they're coming from across the spectrum of the university, from sort of top to bottom in the chain of command. I've had just about everybody in my office, which is exciting for me. One thing that's started happening more and more is that managers will come to me and say, you know, I've got a thing going on in my office. I'm not quite sure where it is. Will you sit down and talk to me and all my staff? I had one of those recently that was really, both the manager and I were like, wow, this was cool. A group came, the manager came and said, it just doesn't feel right. Everybody's on edge. We're all just feeling icky with one another. Can we sit down and talk about how we can be more effective in our workday? So I thought, okay, so we worked up some starting questions to get the pump primed, to get the discussion flowing, and it was very interesting, the outcome. This is a unit that had just remodeled its physical space, and when they relaid out the space, they tried to use the space as efficiently as possible, so the cubicles became smaller and more compact and kind of pushed in a corner. And this was a group that used to do a lot of interaction. They'd go in and sit down in each other's offices and brainstorm together, and just a lot of, you know, going back and forth with one another. Well, with the new physical layout, it came out in the conversation that I was facilitating with them. In the new physical layout, they didn't feel like they could do that because it was an open space. The cubicles were so small, they said, we can't even put an extra chair in the cubicle. And so everybody had kind of quieted down because it was now the open space. They weren't interacting in their normal kind of casual get-together form. And then everybody started looking around, am I making too much noise? Oh, is she making too? So they realized that literally the physical space had kind of screwed up their interpersonal working relationships. So they called me and said, Elaine, we ran back to the office and got out the tape measure and started measuring where we could make the cubicles bigger. And so, happy ending. So, you know, it's bizarre when you sit there and think, well, she doesn't like me or he's really mad at me. But really, it's because you've got a cubicle that's too small. It's not the people at all. And you don't realize this until somebody from outside the group starts asking, well, how come you're not sitting together anymore? How come you don't go over and visit them and ask them the questions that you want to work with? So it's interesting to have a neutral person come out and look at what you're doing or talk to you about what you're doing. So I do that kind of stuff. Sometimes people just come in and say, can I just bounce some ideas off of you? Sometimes people will come in and say, you know, I want to write a letter to my boss or my coworker, but I don't know if it's too nasty. And so they'll ask me to look at it, and most of the time I will say, yeah, that's too nasty. So we'll sit together and I'll try, you know, I won't write it for them, but I'll help them say, well, didn't you want to mention that, whatever. And just trying to help people say what they really mean in a manner that's not going to make the room explode. Sometimes people want to say something, but they're so uncomfortable doing it face to face, they ask me to go and say it to the other person for them. So that's what I call shuttle diplomacy. So I take, with their permission, the information that they want the other person to hear and kind of do the back and forth. And a lot of times if I do the back and forth enough and do it gracefully enough, at some point they're willing to sit down in my office across the table from one another, and then we'll talk some more face to face, and I'll try and help them get through that conversation without getting really angrier than they already are. We've had interesting experiences when we try that. You know, I had one case where a supervisor and a subordinate sat down together. The supervisor was invited by the subordinate, came in, sat down, and we went for about 90 minutes, and it was really tight. In fact, the supervisor came in and sat down like this far from the table, like this, you know? And I thought, oh, long afternoon. And so after about 90 minutes, I forget who it was, one of them said to the other, so you didn't know that, blah, blah, blah. And the other one said, no, I had no idea. And there was this pregnant pause, and then they both just started cracking up laughing. I mean, it was like the air in their, you know, hot balloon just went out. And so after that, they were like, oh, well, here's what I mean. And, you know, and they weren't perfect friends after that, but at least they could see each other's perspectives. So, you know, sometimes if you could just sit in the room with the other person and have your ability to say what you want to say in a respectful manner, and you're not feeling like they're going to jump down your throat or anything, then it can be kind of effective. You can at least continue working together without that stress that sometimes you feel. I think, you know, in the context of what I try to do with people, I don't make decisions. A lot of times people will come in and say, what do you think I should do? And I'll say, I don't know, because I'm not you. I don't know your family situation. I don't know what your, you know, life is like. Only you know that. I can help you talk through these different options that we've talked about, but you have to make the decision that works best for you and your family. I had somebody today I invited to a meeting with the person on the other side of the table, and they said, well, I'll come if you think it will be helpful. And I said, well, you know what? I'm not part of this equation. You have to come if you think it will be helpful, because what I think isn't really relevant to what's going on to the situation between you and this other person. I can help the two of you talk about what's going on, but what I think really has no meaning in the great scheme of things, because you guys have to work together, and I'm not going to be there when it's over. So that's what I try to do, is help people realize this is a conflict that I'm facing, maybe with another person, and it's really not as hopeless as I think it is, because, you know, sitting here with Elaine, I've been able to figure out here's 3, 4, 5 options, and now I can look at all of them and figure out what's going to work best for me and my family. And so then people can kind of return to a more comfortable work environment, which is a nice thing, because who wants to sit in an office for 8 hours a day with people that, you know, kind of make you twitch. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I know Kayla has put a welcome to the Ombuds Office in your packets. I did bring some Ombuds Office bookmarks and some of my business cards. My phone number is 2940268. I'm in the office Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and I'm happy to help anybody. You know, just give me a call or drop me an email and say, Elaine, can I make an appointment?